What if the answers you're searching for are already within you? Here at Richer Within, we believe they are, and we're here to help you discover them. I'm Kathryn, joined by Dynamo Dr. Pat. Together, we blend science and spirituality to guide you in reconnecting with your inner wisdom and unique magnificence. Tune in for inspiring stories and practical strategies to boost clarity, embrace your worth, and spark meaningful change. Ready to unlock your inner wealth? Start your transformation now. I'm thinking about what freedom means to me. And I was thinking, what about, yes, independence is awesome. And what about inner dependence? What about a practice of cultivating inner dependence so that I am not reliant on external circumstances to feel a sense of inner freedom, to feel a sense of freedom in my life, regardless of what happens around me, people, situations, and in my own mind. And that's how it came up. And it comes down to, what if we can't change the circumstances?
Right.
But we can change our relationship to the circumstances. How do we respond? And then what if that's where true freedom actually starts, is when we stop replaying things, when we get out of the regret and all of the things in the past that we didn't do right, and shift that through presence and compassion for ourselves and a choice of how to respond in any given moment.
Yeah. I mean, it really begs the question, if you're listening to this, have you ever missed something you really wanted? Well, let's start with that. But let's just go further. Have you ever, yeah, this is the one that I think a lot of people say over and over again, but you don't really say it. You don't know you're saying it, right? Have you missed something in your life, just a thing, whatever, that you believe you're not going to get back? And without getting it back, basically your life is ruined. Now, I'm not being over dramatic, because what goes on in the inside can be such a futile effort for something that happens in our lives. And that's not freedom. When that holds on to you, that is not freedom.
Yes. That's the opposite of freedom. It's like we become captive to our own minds. I can become a prisoner to my own mind, and I'm shut in by it because I
Yeah.
can't let myself out of it, or I'm choosing. It's not an easy thing. We'll just say
No,
that, right?
no.
Yeah. And so what happened? Oh, go ahead.
Even like the words, though, we may say to somebody, I mean, what is that rhyme? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will. Come on now. I don't know who
Mm-hmm.
came up with that, but they have not been in my circle growing up, because names do hurt. Sticks
Mm-hmm.
and stones do hurt. I am watching a young woman right now. I got to tell you, Kathryn, I don't know what her spiritual practice is or what she does, but she was raised by two parents that literally, behind the scenes, somehow must have taught her not to respond, not to react. Very different on the court. She got to get that under control. But this idea of not reacting, I don't know how some people do it. But truly, for those of us looking out here, you're going to walk us through these freeze frames. You're going to walk us through how every single bit of these can hold on to us and not let go for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm. And I do call them freeze frames for that reason, right? We're frozen in that frame that's a picture of entire life. But if we're frozen there, are we stopping the life from continuing that we are desiring? So I like to go from a freeze frame to reframe. And I had the opportunity to practice that weekend of the 4th of July. I went to see a really close friend of mine at the coast, and her husband of 30 years, beloved husband of 30 years, passed last October.
Ugh.
And I went to be with her over the weekend. And we were having a great time, and evening came, and about 9 o'clock came, and for anybody that doesn't know yet, I'm an aurora chaser, and I actually have an aurora app that if there's a certain indicator that there might be a visible northern lights, we'll call them, it goes off. And mine went off that night on July 3rd at the beach. I'm like, oh, I might be able to see the northern lights tonight. And so I went running down to the beach, just a block and a half from the house. And it was cloudy. I mean, cloudy. There was a little tiny strip of clear. Everything was cloudy all the way. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to miss the aurora. I can't believe I'm going to miss it. And then I was torturing myself by looking at every picture that people were posting on Facebook that are aurora chasers, where they were, what they were seeing. Somebody saw one near the city that I live in, even in the city lights. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss the northern lights, and I'm here. I can't believe I'm here this weekend. And after 45 minutes of wishing the clouds away, I gave up and I went home and to my friend's house and went to sleep. Well, I woke up in the morning and I was still in that freeze frame. I was still bemoaning the fact that I had totally missed. I mean, it's really rare for them to be at the precise time around sunset when it's starting to get dark. And usually the coast is very clear. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. But anyway, that night it turned out to be cloudy. I was still in my freeze frame. And then I caught myself. And I thought to myself, is this really how I want to feel? Is this really how I want to show up for my friend who's in a pretty sad place right now, who's really missing her beloved right now? Is this how I want to show up? And in that moment, I did a reframe.
Mm.
And I said, what is most important here? The most important thing is being present for my friend. She's only going to experience one first 4th of July after her husband's passing.
Wow.
And they had been grand marshals at the 4th of July parade in the little town, the beach town where they lived last year. And so it was especially meaningful. And also, it was hard. And so I'm like, you know what? I have 30 years left to experience the Northern Lights. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here now. And I'm going to say, that's great for all the people that got to see the Northern Lights. What a beautiful thing. And I am just going to trust that I am at the right place at the right time, and more good is being revealed than I had even imagined. So I shifted that freedom into freedom from that inner captivity I was having going on, the freedom to be present. And little did I know I was going to end up being in the parade with my friend because I was supporting in my professional work uh, a, a local effort in their emergency preparedness. And so I actually not marched, we went through the parade together with their banner for Medical Reserve Corps. And it was so touching. It was so moving. We could not believe all the people that showed up in this little town, and everybody was so happy, thanking us for our service. The feeling was really quite overwhelming. It was very emotional for me. I was in tears half the way, just absorbing all of it. And
Mhm.
so this is freedom from the inside out.
Yeah. You know, what you're describing is a moment of time that you were able to catch yourself. Now, look, maybe you did a little stomping up and down here for a minute. Yeah, right. We are human, but you caught yourself so that the entire time with your friend wasn't about that.
Mhm.
And that's what we were saying at the beginning of this. When we have this thing that we hold on to the energy of regret. So just for everybody listening, in case you don't know this, regret does turn into resentment. So you may think regret is like a benign word, but regret is a half a step away from resentment. The difference between regret and resentment is what Kathryn just explained. That's the difference right there. But when does it shift to resentment? it could turn to resentment in a minute, but you caught yourself. Can you talk a bit about the freedom from the inside out and the reframing process? Because you did that so beautifully, but I have to wonder if it was as easy as you just described.
It actually was. And
Because you got some tools. The rest of
because
us
I,
don't have, so we don't have the tools, but you have the
well,
knowledge too.
yes, and the practice is the thing
Practice. That's it.
because yes, I stomped my feet on the beach and I cursed at the clouds when I was trying to wish them all away. You know, my disappointment was real, right? And I won't deny that. And but the suffering, like someone once said a long time ago, is optional. And it came from my mind returning to that scenario, thinking that I could change it. I knew I couldn't change it. I just realized that the clouds weren't the only thing blocking my view. My own mind was blocking my freedom. And I mentioned practice, Dr. Pat, also, and everyone listening. Before I had that realization, I had spent time in meditation. I had spent time in the silence because that's where my insides show. And that's where I'm guided into the greater truth of who I am. And the truth of who I am and everyone is freedom. So that's where the moment came where the epiphany, like I talk about, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. So how do I want to do this? How do I want to be? How do I want to show up? Choosing. That moment of choice is like a snowball. Look how that happened. All of that happened. Ended up being in the parade, ended up being able to help her set up for her party and take it down and be there after the party was over, which is one of the hardest things for people grieving someone's passing, right? Is when everybody's gone. So I was able to fully be there. And such a gift, right? So this is really about inner captivity and how to bust out of it, you know. And I know that there's real forms of captivity in the world, right? There's physical, there's relational, there's systemic, and I don't want to minimize any of that at all. But today we're talking
Yeah.
specifically about the inner places where our
Yeah.
thoughts or old beliefs, old patterns, and old um, regret, like you're talking about, that turns into a resentment. One of my spiritual teachers would say that regret is a thief of the present,
Yeah.
which is
No
very
kidding.
true. And it's
Look,
powerful.
you and I have talked about Viktor Frankl, and I would absolutely regret not mentioning him here because I do not think there is anybody to date that I know of in these contemporary times, and I do consider him in contemporary times, even though we're talking about something almost 100 years ago,
Mhm.
who what what Viktor Frankl experienced and then wrote about in Man's Search for Meaning. When somebody gave me that book, when I was a crazy youngster, and they gave me that book, I didn't understand it, but I read it, and it hit my heart. I didn't have the tools, but we're talking about a man that was in a concentration camp, and he utilized that time in the camp, kept his optimism, tried to keep other people. And, when I think about the choice he had with his inner prison, right? What it means to me is exactly what you said. Every single one of us has the ability to control that. See, we do have that ability to make that choice, don't we?
We do. And actually, I wrote myself a note to bring up Victor. And also people like Stephen Hawking,
Oh,
who at 21 had developed a motor neuron disease of some kind. I mean, he was a prisoner to his body, in his body, right? And he became one of the leading scientists and wrote the groundbreaking A Brief History of Time.
yeah,
That's what Stephen Hawking was able to accomplish. Helen Keller, if you think about it, 19 months, loses her sight and her hearing. And because she had someone help her, she was
oh,
able to learn how to communicate, read, write, and even speak. And that's something else I like to highlight is people can really help us along the way. We're just not depending on them, right? So there are incredible examples of that way of being where there's some type of being in captivity that people have risen to be leaders, spiritual leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, political leaders, Nelson Mandela. So it is a practice, a daily moment to moment practice of asking ourselves, what is captivating my attention right now? And does that lead me to feel at peace? Or is it restricted? Or how do I want to be here right now?
You know who comes to mind? We haven't talked about her formally, but she popped right in my head right now. And we don't talk about her now enough. We were talking about her, but I think this is a time we've got to bring these people to the forefront. Malala Yousafzai, for those people that are not out there, you know, of course, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, youngest ever, but her story goes beyond the fact that she was hunted down, shot, and then rose up not to be silenced, continued to educate, continued to not really bow down to that level of violence. Malala Yousafzai was somebody that in our time is, if girls or women looking at role models, you have to
Mhm.
look at somebody like that. Greta Thunberg. Now, Greta's not as vocal as she was because they keep threatening to kill her family. So sometimes you have to make choices in life. But we're talking about this for a reason, Kathryn, aren't we? And the story you just gave, can you imagine if you'd have held on to that prison chain for the entire time? Could you imagine what you'd be talking about now?
I'd be talking about how do I get over regretting being such a unpleasant person to be around this weekend. And uh I have experienced being held captive in my own car and experienced violence that way. And I was looking for some type of external God to come and save me, somebody to drive into the garage, some way that some power out there somewhere was going to get me out of that situation until I realized I'm the one to get me out of my captivity. I'm the one. And that's when I was able to break
Mm,
free.
yeah. I can't believe you picked these topics when I'm getting ready to become all wimpy and cowardly about something. Because no, I'm not kidding. I'm watching something now in women's sports that as I look at this and I know what I fought for. I know what I fought for. You know, women were not allowed to play in the open, in the table tennis open when I was in my 20s, and we fought to get in there. And I'm watching now what's happening to the elevated WNBA. And I'm watching a dysfunction that goes beyond my PhD to describe. So I sat on the fence, and Congress wrote a letter. And the letter they wrote prompted me to write a letter back. And so I'm writing this letter back, and it's a long letter because I think they're missing the boat on leadership. But this weekend, I asked myself, why am I doing it? Do I
Mm.
really want to do this? That's not the voice of courage.
Mm-hmm.
That's a voice that I've had in my head for a lot of years.
Mm.
And then I get ready for this show. And I think to myself, I have a window of time to do this. How will I feel if I don't? Now, it may seem trivial. It may seem like nothing going on. But again, I got hit with it yesterday in the most ridiculous scenario. And I'm going to say their name, the Home Depot. And I cried because they threw away all their plants, all their vegetable plants, rather than sell them at discount. And I was talking to two kids that work at the Home Depot because we were looking for scraps of lumber. And they say, no, they just get rid of everything now. And I said, what did they do with the plants? He said, we watched them throw them in the garbage the other day. And I'm telling you, my aisle number 10, bawling my eyes out in the lumber department about, and I just thought to myself, I got to say something here. Why? Why would you throw out what God gives us so beautifully? I mean, come on, you could have discounted them, you could have sold them, you could have given them away, right? So some things hit me harder than others. Do you have anything at the moment that you can think of? Of course, we can't reverse it, but we can look at things differently, right? My
We can look at,
stepmom, yeah,
Mhm.
my stepmom regretted. I'm sorry, I got to tell you, Mama Doris regretted for a long time a candidate she voted for, and she made it really vocal to us, girl. It became an embedded philosophy about regret. But what's on your mind for us today?
One thing is that any action towards inner freedom makes a difference. So when you say it might seem small, any step towards that inner freedom, there's nothing small and nothing great in the universe. It all matters. So any little shift in any given moment that you are able to make
Yeah.
leads the way to each decision after that becoming a little bit easier, becoming a little bit easier, becoming a little bit more clear. And then that becomes the devotion to yourself. I am devoted to my inner freedom. What does that look for me right now when I am feeling really anxious about
Mm.
X, Y, or Z? I acknowledge this is difficult. I'm going to give myself 5 minutes and then focus on how I want to feel, how I want to feel, how I want to show up, and what
Mhm.
can I do then from that place.
And you're going to help us with it now because you got a spiritual mind spa treatment for us today because we must incorporate spirituality. I mean, I'm not kidding. Crying in aisle 14 or whatever it was in the lumber department over something that happened to plants that I didn't know, it just hit me. It just something hit me. So, how can you help us today?
I would like to invite us to have just a brief practice. And this is what anyone can do anytime. I recommend it first thing in the morning before you touch your phone or any kind of computer or any kind of external information for cultivating this inner dependence, this inner reliability, this inner resilience. And so in just a moment, to close your outer eye and place our ear on our inner heart, this is where we listen. And we take a breath, we receive a life-giving breath without which we would not be here. Simply gratitude paves the way for more good. We breathe and we recognize that we are so grateful to live in this beautiful, lavish, abundant universe where everything is available to us as our spiritual birthright. We are born in freedom. We live within a field of freedom. The freedom, look at nature and the freedom of the birds to fly, the birds to sing, the trees to grow, the freedom to flourish and expand. This is our nature. And because we are embodiments of that infinite intelligence and power and presence, this is ours. And so I speak my word forward about everyone listening to this, that what they hear seeps inside and encourages them in moments of a freeze frame, in moments of regret, anxiety, or fear, to simply with compassion breathe and choose and walk forward into the life of joy and love and abundance and freedom that is yours. It is all here right now, and we embrace it. I call it forth. And in gratitude, I let this be. knowing that it is always acted upon, the infinite field of potentiality, always listening, always responding, always saying yes. I simply let it be. We let it be, and we welcome it to be so. And we say, and so it is. So it is.
So it is. Kathryn, thank you so much for this today. I really appreciate you bringing it to light and the way you bring it to light, because I didn't really have time to talk about the third thing. Things happen in threes for me, but there was a third thing that you cannot plan. This one thing that happened, I think, helped us move beyond whatever anger we had going on between the four of us, whatever. It's just one very thing you couldn't plan. Two people driving down the road that were not supposed to stop and see each other. But when they did, all of the anger, all of the disrespect, all of it faded away. Do you imagine if we didn't take that opportunity to be kind? Kathryn, thank you so much. Give out your website.
RicherWithin.com. Also YouTube, Richer Within. I'm on Instagram. And yes, there was a group in the 4th of July parade, and their motto was be kind. They were little bee bonnets on their heads, and they were about be kind.
I love it. Thank you all for tuning us in.
Thank you,
Emily, thank
everyone.
you. We'll see you next time.
Namaste. Thank you for investing in yourself by listening to Richer Within with me, Kathryn, and Dr. Pat. Continue this journey with us every third Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Feeling inspired? Visit richerwithin.com to explore one-on-one sessions, speaking engagements, and supportive services with me. Together, let's co-create a world that uplifts everyone through deeper living and conscious presence. Until next time, and always, align with your inner wealth of wisdom. Wow.